Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Skills Workshop. It's the 32nd Virtual Careers Fair. For those of you who've been here before and followed the programme since June 4th, welcome back. To anyone joining for the first time, welcome. My name is Kirsty McDermott and I'm a HR business partner here at Impax, and I'll be your host for today. Rachel Green, along with 60 different firms, created this programme to give you the skills, knowledge and insight you need to prepare for a career in asset management. A reminder, all of our sessions are free to register and the details will be popped in the chat box shortly. Over the months of September and October, we're featuring 41 different firms every single day for 1 hour, each telling you what they do, how they hire, and what skills you need to stand out from other applicants and to be successful. Last week, you heard from Dimensional, Morgan Stanley, Rothschild, and DWS, and tonight is the turn of my very own firm, Impax. Today, joining me is Darren Johnson, Harry Boyle, and Kitty Rupra. So if I can ask the team to introduce themselves very briefly, tell us what you do and a bit about yourself. So we're going to start with Darren, then Harry, and then on to Kitty.
Okay, so what do I do? So I'm a Global Chief Operating Officer of Impax Asset Management. I've been at Impax for about 14 years. I think I'm in my 15th year, believe it or not. Very crazy. A little bit about me, very much enjoy my role, very much care about giving back as well. So I have a few charity things that I do. And yeah, Impax is a great, exciting place. I'll hand over to Kitty. Thanks.
Hi everyone, my name's Kitty and I work in the Human Resources Department at Impax. I've been with the firm for coming up to 4 years now, working on various things such as recruitment, employee onboarding, internships and employee benefits. So I'll be handing over to Harry.
Thanks, Kitty. Good evening, everyone. My name's Harry Boyle. I've been at Impax for coming on 4.5 years. I work as a portfolio specialist. Hopefully I'll get the opportunity to explain what that is later on. But I've worked in and around sustainability, environmental finance for coming on 16 years now. So nice to meet everyone.
Fab, thank you. So now we know who everyone is. A quick reminder, this is a webinar, so we can't see your faces, but we're hoping to be able to get some of your questions later on today using the Q&A function to ask us questions. So please do, no question is a silly question, so just go for it. And we'll try and answer as many of them as possible. So I think we should probably get started. So grab a pen and paper and we'll get going on today's workshop. Kitty, if you can kindly click us onto the next slide.
Sure.
Awesome. So Impax Asset Management, who are we? So we're a specialist manager and we've got over 20 years of experience in what we do. Our team has over 60 investment team members and they are based globally in UK, US, Hong Kong and Ireland. We really focus on high quality investment solutions for both institutional and individual investors. And we really focus on a partnership approach with our clients, which you'll hear more about later on. We also currently have 34.4 billion assets under management, and you can see how that's split there. So we're really, really proud of that and our growth that we've had so far, and we're continuing our exciting growth journey. On to the next slide. So what do we stand for? So our vision is to be an asset specialist, a specialist asset manager, investing in opportunities arising from the transition to a more sustainable economy. And I'm going to pass you over to Harry to tell you more about that transition.
Yeah, if we could flick to the next slide, that would be great. So this is a bit of a mouthful and a difficult concept to relate, but what we're trying to do at Impax Asset Management is we're trying to invest in more sustainable bits of the global economy. And what do we mean by that? We would say that if you're over on the left-hand side of this slide, you're probably a company that's doing something not so good for the world. You're solely prizing financial returns. You could be a kind of coal-burning power plant, you might be involved in the mining industry and possibly using underage workers, or you could be a big pharmaceutical company closely guarding your intellectual property and essentially keeping drug prices high. So we would say, you know, without trying to make too much of an ethical judgment about businesses on the left-hand side, we would say that those areas of the economy are unfortunately ripe for disruption. And what Impax as an investment house does is we invest in the disruptors, and they might that might be a technological disruption, like generating a unit of electricity or a kilowatt hour from solar power. That is going to disrupt how much coal is burnt in our system, hopefully. It might involve consumer preference. We're increasingly seeing consumers trying to move away from solely meat-based diets, and that's positive because that will have an impact on the big agricultural businesses that do well out of selling us stuff that's probably less good for us. And then I think the one that's most exciting is probably on social factors. Previously, a company could do something bad kind of 10 or 15 years ago, and it might take a very, very diligent investigative journalist or a very, very eagle-eyed investor 2, 3, maybe 10 years to uncover this problem, by which time it's done a great deal of societal damage. But thanks to social media, if a company is doing something bad and somebody can report on it, then you know, half the global population can know very, very quickly. So that's a very, very positive thing. That puts companies under pressure to behave in a more responsible fashion. And then finally, on the regulation side, we're seeing governments ask us as consumers to consume less fat, to consume less sugar, and ultimately to consume less meat. That's one example of how regulation is playing a part in markets that we invest in. So overall, what Impax is setting out to do is we would like to invest in businesses on the right-hand side of this slide. We would say that these are sustainable economic growers. I hope that's not too much jargon for you, but that's as clearly as I think I can put it.
Okay, I think it's me now. So we're going to discuss some of our Impax values, just to give you an idea of how we want people to be in our organization. So maybe firstly, let me just explain my role, because I quickly said I'm global COO. What does that actually mean? So the best way I can explain it is by potentially just using an analogy. So I'm hoping that most of you will understand Formula One as a sport, so motor racing. So if you imagine you have the likes of Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas and other drivers that go on and, you know, win races and win championships and get the accolade. Well, those drivers are akin to what I'll describe as our portfolio managers, and really those guys can't win that race without the right engineering team. If you think about what goes into a Formula One car, you've got people who look after the tires, people look after the engines, the electrics, the aerodynamics, and everything else to give the driver the tools to go ahead and win that race. So there's skill there as well to keep that car on the road. And effectively, the chief operating officer role is managing some of those elements of that car, that engine, putting it all together, making sure that we've got a competitive advantage. Effectively, our car, the engine runs well, and we can go and win that race, or give the PMs the tools to win that race. So that's effectively what I do in a kind of using an analogy. Hopefully that kind of makes sense to you. And I'm going to hand over to Harry just very quickly, just to explain what he does as well.
Thanks, Aaron. I have to say, I think this is a great analogy, and trying to fit what I do into that analogy. As a portfolio specialist, I represent the portfolio managers when we're talking to clients. So, and I also cover 10 investments or 10 stocks that we invest in. So I would say, if you know Formula One quite well, I think I'm a bit like that guy George Russell, who's like the second and a half driver for McLaren. He's not quite a primary driver, but I'm there should anything go wrong to fill that seat. I'll leave it there.
Great. So I think it's Mercedes, but not that I'm a Formula One fan. Not McLaren.
But anyway.
Yeah,
right. It's Mercedes.
Yeah. Anyway, moving swiftly on. So what you're seeing in front of you is basically our values. So we want to be the solution. We have a passion for excellence. All voices valued. Doing better together. Building a common future. We curated these values back in 2018, where we kind of established a working group with representatives from all over the organization. We sat down, worked together, and we came up with these values. We all try and live and breathe these values. This is something that we expect employees to be demonstrating. It's part of the competencies, it's part of the way we evaluate employees for appraisal and bonus round. So now I'm going to probably move to the Q&A with Harry. So we're going to ask each other a couple of questions. We're going to attempt to answer those questions, and then we'll hand back to you, Kirsty. So I think it's over to you, Harry. I think you're going to be asking me first, right?
Yeah. So Darren, I thought what I would ask is, first, what does kind of being the solution day to day mean for you? What qualities would you look for in terms of it being the solution? Could you bring that first important value to life for me and for everyone else?
Okay, great. I guess a few examples I think that might resonate. So being the solution for Impax is where we see a problem, and it doesn't need to be in the organization. We see a problem of diversity and inclusion and equity, and we, participating in something like this, going on talks and really trying to move the dial with our own thinking around this topic is something we do. So not only have we seen as a problem, we're actually trying to come up and influence appropriate solutions within our organization and outside of our organization, as an example. Also, Harry talked about, depletive economy there, and talking about the sustainable economy and how we can, how we're helping that transition and how we're looking for solutions to these problems to make sure that we have a sustainable future. So that's what we do. That's our business. I think when we look at individuals, I always say that there's value in finding problems, but there's even more value in solving them. So what I'll say is that if being a solution for my teams is, come and discuss a problem with me or my colleagues, but at least come armed with 3 solutions, right? So that we can figure out best. It's great if you tell me there's a problem, but we're a busy organization. It's good if you thought through what the right solutions are. That's so valuable and helps build credibility. It does take a different mindset to be the solution. I think you've got to trust yourself. I always say you've got to know what you know and know what you don't know. Ask for help if there's an issue, particularly when working. And then another one I'll say is that one of the most selfish things that you can do in this world is to help someone else, right? And I explain what that means, because the feeling inside you get, that's where the joy is and where the success is. So being the solution is also being a bit selfish, but what I mean by that, the context for that is help people solve problems as well. So that's what I'll say. Any more questions for me, Harry?
Yeah, well, one more. I was just digesting the power of that insight, if I'm honest. I think you know, it's the same thing, and I think you've already spoken to this. But what does the fourth kind of value mean for you in terms of doing better together? How again are you doing this within your team and maybe in the wider kind of leadership organization?
Okay, so I'll say, you know, you've got to cultivate and build credibility with people, right? To me, that's doing better together. People have got to trust you. Going back to that trust issue, you know, we're a global firm, and people tend to. It's always easy to build relationships with people that look like you, from the same area, same characteristics, whatever as you, and people tend to do that. But when you're working for a global organization, that doesn't work, right? Because there's going to be people that are different from you. They're going to have different frames of reference. You know, the way they've been brought up, completely different. So you've got to invest your time getting to know people, right? And I always say it's not right to get to know people when there's a problem. So when there's a problem, it's the first time you spoke to a manager or a colleague. That's not the right time, right? You've got to build that relationship before that happens, okay? Because if you do that, then you are doing better together. You can work together to take your team, your business to the next level. Also, you can help break down silos. One of the biggest risks to organizations is the silos that sometimes build when organizations get bigger. So if doing better together means you should be working to break down those silos. So I normally say there's a vertical approach and a horizontal. You know, work with that horizontal, find out what's going on, have coffees, talk to people in different teams, work together to try and understand what's going on in different areas of the business and build and be that solution. So, okay. Is it now my turn to ask you some questions?
I think it's now your turn. Yeah,
it's my turn. Okay,
yeah.
Loving this. Okay, so why are you passionate about sustainability, and when did you first gain an interest? Because you talked about being in this for like 16 years, so you know, tell me.
Hopefully, I look a little bit younger than my 16 years experience, but it has been really exciting. It's been a great space to work in and around. I think the light bulb moment was very, very clear for me. I actually started out working as a kind of lowly junior researcher / post boy at the BBC 18 years ago. And as I kind of like advanced out of that very, very junior role, I was asked to fact find and dig into a film that Al Gore had just put out called An Inconvenient Truth. And basically my boss or my boss's boss said, is all of what Al Gore is claiming in this film true? And that's what we did on the program that I worked on, which was called Panorama. And as I dug into it, and I really struggled to find any inaccuracies. I would have said, you know, 98 or 99% of what he was saying in An Inconvenient was very accurate, and therefore that frightened me a bit. I was like, cool, this climate crisis, and it wasn't the big thing probably that it is today, is going to be a huge problem. And so after that, I decided that I probably didn't want to work at the BBC forever, and so I tried to find a job in and around sustainability and finance, and I found my way to a very exciting business called New Energy Finance that became Bloomberg New Energy Finance. And I did 10 years there, and then one of the best organizations that I had the privilege of working with was Impax Asset Management. They were on the front line actually doing the investing, and they were real kind of pioneers in their field. So took a bit of a lengthy route to get there, but I always knew I wanted to work at Impax, and here I am today. So I feel very, very fortunate. It's been an exciting space to work in. It's had lots of twists and turns. Occasionally the hype causes it to get ahead of itself, and occasionally there are moments where the sector is uninvestable. but the long and the short of it is that the overall movement is going in the right direction, and I hope Impax in its small way is facilitating the positive changes.
Wow. So I never knew about this panorama. That's amazing. We'll talk about that later. The next question I have for you, thank you for that, is I think a good question actually. What does diversity, equality, and inclusion mean to you?
Yeah, again, it's a really good question, and I think casting my mind back to when I joined Impax kind of 4.5 years ago, I think in portfolio construction meetings, that's where you would sit down and discuss your 40 or 50 odd investments within your strategy or your fund or your portfolio. Bruce and Hubert, who are effectively the leaders of the investment team, are by their very nature incredibly collaborative, and they are very, very good at giving everyone a platform to speak. And that can be a 23 or a 22-year-old or an intern, or it can be a 60-year-old man with 35 years experience. And I think they identified quite early, certainly kind of 10 or 15 years ago, that it wasn't just about surrounding yourselves with other white males. In order to get that richness of thought, you had to have diversity, and whether that's via different age groups, different genders, or different nationalities. And we've always been quite an international team. And then, people with different colored faces and coming from different backgrounds. I think it's been difficult to really continue to push the envelope on getting diversity, but I've been amazed at the progress that we made in the 5 years that I've been there. So I think, for me, diversity and equality and inclusion means everyone has a voice, but it also means then there needs to also be a bit of challenge in there. If you do have differing opinions, you have to have the confidence to vent them, and likewise, if you have a different opinion to someone else, you don't take it too personally. So I think we are not at the end of our journey, but Impax has tried to lead in this field, and I hope we're doing that.
Thank you so much, Harry. Kirsty, I think I'm going to hand over to you now. That's the end of the questions.
No worries, fab. And I'm going to hand straight over to Kitty.
Thank you. Thanks, Darren and Harry. That was a very interesting Q&A. So I'll be talking to you all through the internship process and then our top 10 application tips for you. So the time is now October to January. This is when we are seeking CVs, applications. So do send your cover letters to recruitment@impaxam.com. So as I mentioned, from October to January, we'll be just looking through CVs, applications, trying to gauge interests. So if you are, you have a particular department that you're interested in, any particular project that you want to work on, do just make that clear in your cover letter. In terms of next steps after that, roughly February to March time, the Human Resources Department will reach out to our heads of departments just to gauge what are the projects for the summer internships. So this year we had 12 interns, so that's covering 12 different internship projects. So that's the timing for that. From March to April, we will then reach back out to you guys. So this is in terms of advertising. So we'll advertise our internship projects on LinkedIn, and we'll reach out to yourselves, making it very clear of all the internship projects that we have available. And then we'll just ask for a response back from yourselves, just kind of making it very clear which projects you'd like to be put forward to. At that point, we will then send your CV to the relevant project manager. Should you then be shortlisted, we will then take you through the interview and selection stage, which is from April to May. Now, what does this interview stage involve? So it's actually a 3-stage process, with stage 1 being you meeting with the project manager. And essentially that stage is just, the project manager going through your CV, asking you questions. And don't forget, it's a 2-way process. So you will also be given the opportunity to ask any questions that you may have. The second stage, if you are successful, is then a competency-based interview. And I'll just talk you through our 8 competencies at Impax that we have. And then the last stage of that interview process is just a meet and greet with other team members and a member of the HR department. So as I mentioned there, the second stage being the competency-based stage. These are our 8 Impax competencies. So number 1 being collaborate as one team. Second, exercising sound judgment. Debate, decide and deliver. Keeping future focused. Staying open-minded and flexible. Communicating with impact. Living our values, and lead, develop and enable. So some of you guys might be thinking, why do we ask competency-based questions? Well, we believe that past behaviors are the best predictors for future behaviors. So for example, if we want to really drill down into this competency, we'd ask a question, give us an example or describe a time where you were rewarded for really achieving teamwork. How did you feel? What did you do? So it's really about gaining that insight into your previous experience, that we can just understand you a little bit better. So just going back to the process here. So after that stage, once you've been through an interview and you've completed all 3 stages, we'll then reach out to you, and should you be the successful candidate, we'll then offer you your internship at a start date that is convenient for yourself. So this is usually over the summer period, so from any time from June to October, and then we will commence your onboarding. A couple of questions that you guys may have is, what have we been doing during COVID? We have, thank goodness, we've actually continued with our internship process, but we've just done these remotely. Hopefully next year we can start having these back in the office. I know we've had a few interns this year who have actually been able to go into our office, but to answer any questions there on COVID related stuff, we have been actually offering virtual internships here. So we place students in a range of research projects through various departments. So, we've had a couple of interns in our compliance department, in our front office, working on projects such as circular economy, human capital management, and we are looking to have many more internships next year as well. The duration varies from 1 to 6 months, and interns typically join us during, their gap year. So say if you've completed your first year at university, you've got a gap year, we welcome interns at that stage as well, or typically people who have just finished their studies at university. All of our internships are paid. As mentioned, we actually had 12 interns join us this year. One of these interns had actually come to us through 100 Black interns, and that individual was with us for a period of 2 months and worked on a really exciting hybrid internship project in our listed equity department and private equity department as well. So moving on to our top 10 application tips. So these are just top tips that we hope that you will find useful before applying to any kind of internships, whether that's Impax or any other firm that you're interested in, just have these top tips in mind. So number one, do your research. So find out key facts about the company. Whilst you're researching what really stood out to you, make notes of those so that you can actually mention that during your interview process. Number two, try to think about what you might be asked and build on examples around that. So for example, I just went through, a competency-based question of describing the time where you've worked as part of a team. So there's lots of material online. Just go through practice questions, get yourself used to being in an interview environment. Number three, examples don't always have to be work related. So if you find that, you haven't actually had any work experience, don't worry, just bring the example back to a personal experience. Number four, consider doing a professional qualification that might relate to the internship that you're applying for, such as a CFA or the IMC. Number five, as I mentioned before, remember it's a two-way process. So just as much as we want to get to know you through the interview process, we also want you to feel comfortable that you can ask as many questions that you would like, just to, really gain clarity on the internship project itself. Number six, showcase relevant projects. So tailor your CV. For example, if you've worked on a project around the topic of sustainability and you want to apply to Impax, make sure that's at the top of your CV, because obviously sustainability is the biggest thing for Impax, because we are the leaders in that space. So just making sure that you're mindful of showcasing anything that's relevant there. Number seven, think about what you are most passionate about. Sometimes we just like to know a bit more about you. So it's nice if you can just use examples of things that, are really close to your heart during the interview process. Number eight, think about what you would like to gain from the project. So having your questions prepped beforehand, and then it's using the interview time to gain as much insight that you can as well. Number nine, putting yourself out there. As Darren mentioned earlier, meeting people, expanding your network is also very, very important. And number 10, just be yourself. We really want you to feel relaxed during an interview process. Obviously, it's going to be nerve-wracking, but we'd like to think at Impax we try and make you feel as relaxed as possible, just by trying to get to know you really, and what are your interests, what are you passionate about, which is why we say have a think about what really inspires you and what's your passion. So those are the top 10 application tips, and I will be passing back to Kirsty now, who will take us through the Q&A.
Awesome, fab, thanks everybody. Brill. So I've been watching the Q&As and they've been coming in, so that's great and a really nice variety. So thank you, and please do keep sending them in whilst I now kind of ask my colleagues a couple of questions. So I think the first one to start with is a good one because it's about context and what we do. So they've asked, I think this might be one for Harry or yourself, Darren, could we be a bit more precise in what we do, a bit around our investment process? Who's going for it?
Darren, do you want me to say that?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, our investment process. So we invest in publicly listed stocks. So those are stocks that even as the retail investor, you could go out and buy yourself. We do have a division of Impax that makes private investments, but I'll speak to the listed equity side of our investment. Essentially what we do is we say a business needs to have either 20% of its sales or its revenues or 50% exposed to our definition of sustainability. And we have various different strategies or portfolios that tweak that definition of sustainability. For instance, we have a sustainable food fund that is all about investing in and around sustainable food businesses. So our criteria for coming into our investment universe in that instance is a minimum 20% revenues or operating profit exposure. And from there, that means that you go from 50 or 60,000 global equities or stocks that you could invest in down to a much smaller pool of about 700. And then we have a kind of quantitative process to guide us towards the best of those 700 companies. And once we've identified one, then potentially we might write quite a long investment paper. Much like you would write an essay during your A-levels or a longer thesis at university, we would put together one of those documents and say, these are the pros and cons of that particular business. We would then meet as a group and discuss the qualities of that business. And if it was of sufficiently high quality, it would go on to our bench, which is much like the bench or the substitutes bench of a football match, and we would then construct our team from that bench. So we would have, for us, our sustainable food fund, we have a bench of about 150 stocks, and then we have a team or a portfolio of about 45 stocks. Again, I hope that's not too jargony, but that's our investment process.
No worries. Fab. Thank you, Harry. And I'm sure, please ask another question if there's anything you want us to explain there. Fab. Right, let's go for something a bit different. Kitty, what would you say our work-life balance is like, and what are the typical hours people work, particularly junior employees?
Lovely question for someone in HR. Yes. So I would generally say work-life balance at Impax is generally very balanced. So we have, I don't think we actually have that culture at, I've worked at previous firms before where the working hours are really, really long, getting up super early and then being in the office till really late. We definitely don't have that here. And that's something that I personally noticed very quickly when I joined back in 2018. I think we have a lot of things at Impax that kind of help push that kind of balance that we have. Number one, coming from Ian, who is our CEO. I remember my first conversation with him in terms of, he's always said, I don't expect people to be working past 6 o'clock. And actually, he said, there's a problem if you are working past 6, because that really shouldn't be happening. So it's a further conversation that you probably need to have with your manager. Secondly, we also have a well-being room in our office, which was launched, I think, just before COVID kicked in, actually. And it's this room, it's quite a nice size room. It's got a lovely chair in there, and you can actually just draw the curtains to get a bit of time to yourself if you just need to, relax for 5 or 10 minutes and just have your you space. And some people are into meditation, and it's just some time back for yourself, and just to kind of almost like a reset button. I know our office manager at the moment is currently working on some really cool initiatives for return to the office, and that's just small things such as snacks in the breakout area, just to kind of encourage people take a break, and it's small things like that that actually really do make a difference.
Completely agree. I know we've been excited about the snacks, Kitty. And we had a mindful movement challenge last week, didn't we? Where everyone kind of got out and took some time in their day to go on a walk or do some kind of exercise. So
definitely, yeah.
Good fun.
Can I add one thing to what you said, Kitty? So I think what I say to people is it's more a work-life blend than a work-life balance thing to be thinking about. And what we definitely do is have that blend. So it's not that you necessarily have to work certain hours, etc. It depends on your circumstances, depends on your job role. But we're very supportive of flexible working where it makes sense. So just to mention that too.
Fab. Awesome. Cool. And we've had a couple of questions about what opportunities or how do we hire for more experienced hires, which Kitty, I think is probably another question for yourself, because we have tailored this to our internship programs at the moment, but we do obviously have experienced hires available. So if you could talk to that, that would be ace.
Absolutely. So if you are interested in any kind of particular roles, or if there's any specific department that you really have got your eye on that you really want to join at Impax, then as mentioned, just send your CV and cover letter to recruitment@impaxam.com. Should there be any opportunities available, we'll just jump on a call with you and just kind of understand your interests a bit more. We now are very excited to announce that we actually have our internal recruiter now, so it would most likely be Shesmin is her name, who will be contacting yourself, and should your application match the requirements of the role itself, we'll then send your CV over to the relevant hiring manager, and then if you are shortlisted to come in for an interview, we'll just work through the interview process itself. So yeah, I'll just say in the first instance, please do send your CV and cover letter to recruitment@impaxam.com.
Awesome, thank you very much. One for yourself, Darren, is there, let me find the question because they're moving quite quickly. What's the one tip you would give to your younger self going into the industry that you can pass on?
I'll give you loads of tips.
One.
I'm going to say own your difference. So in other words, whatever your difference of background, just own it, celebrate that, and don't be shy of it. Make sure that you use it to be a strength, because we all have strengths no matter what our background is. We shouldn't hide that or try and assimilate or whatever. Your background gives you a unique perspective. Use it.
Nice. Awesome. Fab. Here's a good one. They've asked, may I please know what keeps you at Impax? I'm conscious of trying to have fun whilst at work. Just throwing it out to anyone who fancies answering that question. What keeps you at Impax?
Well, the purpose of Impax keeps me at Impax, but maybe that might be too boring for whoever wrote the question. No, it's a great environment. I think if you have a learning mindset, a growth mindset, it's a great place for you. There's nothing better than learning from your colleagues and how to approach different issues, problems, and actually solving things together. It actually gives you that warm feeling. And I was talking about being selfish and helping people to get that warm feeling, and you get a lot of that. And we are fun too. As Kirsty said, we did a well-being event. We're very sociable, and we try to be inclusive with some of the different things that we do. So for example, it's not all drinking culture, all that type of thing, but we do all sorts of things. We're thinking about doing some rock climbing. We did recently, some of my teams, actually, we did a kind of treetops event. We try and do good things to keep the team together and to get to know each other in a fun way. And then we have Christmas parties, and we always have a lot of fun with the Christmas parties and other events throughout the year. So what keeps me at Impax is the people. I'm honored to work with the people on this call and other people within the organization. Very, very lucky. I feel like I'm privileged, and I think anyone joining will hopefully feel the same way.
Awesome. Thank you. Another one that will Kitty or Harry see who fancies answering it is, what's the best part of your job and also the most challenging?
Kitty, do you want to go first?
Yeah,
Go
absolutely. Best part of my job, I think, is definitely number one, I'd say the people. Work with some great people, and I think just very exciting from just speaking specifically for the HR department. We've got some amazing people on the team. First time that we've had a learning and development specialist, which is Kirsty, who's just joined us about 2 months ago. So it's very exciting, and that you can definitely feel new initiatives that are coming off in the team, and just different goals that we're all working on, but we're all working on that together. And also, what I would say is there's also different things to get involved in. So we have various committees at Impax which we can join. So just to name a few for the purpose of this call, but we do have quite a few committees at Impax, such as Wellbeing Committee, the Social Committee, the Volunteering Committee. So I guess this kind of goes back to the previous question is, what keeps me at Impax as well is the fact that it's not just about work. You can actually, yes, the job itself is very you feel like you're making a difference every day, and you feel like you're getting things done by the end of the week. I know certainly for me on a Friday, I feel like I've accomplished so much. But the fact that there are other things to get involved in and other very exciting things, I think that's a really amazing thing. And it does definitely bring about that community kind of spirit and culture that we have at Impax. The challenging thing I would find is sometimes it does get very, very busy. I think right now for the HR team is a very busy period, and for the firm in general, because we're at year end. So there are a lot of different things going on. But I think, just to caveat that, it's very important to have that team spirit and work as a team, because that's what gets you through. And I think that's the best thing about working at Impax, is that you never feel alone. It's never like, oh, I have all of this work to do and I can't go to a team member. Just to use a very kind of live example, this is my last week before going on annual leave for 2 weeks, and Kirsty kindly messaged me this morning and said, just let me know if you've got anything I can cover for you. And it's just nice to have team members like that. It really makes a difference, especially when we are so busy. So I'll pass over to Harry.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I'm going to give a tiny bit of a geeky answer. I'm very interested in energy systems and energy economics, and how that might influence some of the investments we're making. And I'm obviously very enthusiastic about us moving towards a low carbon energy system. And I was lucky enough, I really enjoyed my degree. I enjoy reading. So a large part of my job, or let's say 50% of my job, is getting the opportunity to read and mess about a little bit in Excel, and do some of what Darren said, do a little bit of problem solving. And then I think the Americans have an expression which is drinking from the Kool-Aid. I've well and truly drunk from the Kool-Aid. And I would say, along with Kitty, Darren and Kirsty, that the people that you then work with when I'm not doing 50% of my job, and the culture of Impax is extremely uplifting. It's I've not met somebody at Impax who I dislike. We're quite a large organization. Everyone I speak to, you've normally got a shared point of interest, something that you could potentially enjoy doing. You might learn something. So it's fantastic. And I think our values very much speak to the type of people that you would meet in an Impax meeting.
Ace, fab, thank you. Another one, this is maybe for yourself, Harry. Have you seen an interest in ESG and therefore the success of your strategies?
Yeah, it's impossible to deny that is a factor. Impax has done well recently, maybe particularly in the last 5 years, and being connected to the ESG space has undoubtedly helped us and the businesses that we invest in. So that's very, very positive. But I think because we are hopefully quite an authentic investment voice, and we've been doing this for 22 years, we know, I hope, how to distill between the hype around greenwashing, because I saw that was also a question, and ESG washing, and what is a good long-term business to invest in. We don't always get it right, but hopefully we get it right more often than not.
Fab. Brill, thank you. It's quite fun picking these out, actually. Question here to each of you: what attracted you to your role and the organisation? Anyone up for that? Darren's thinking.
Yeah, I'm happy to go first. What attracted me to my role? So I had to be specific. So at the time we were launching a long-short hedge fund, and that was of real interest to me, coming from a prior organization, working for a wealthy family and establishing their footprint in hedge funds, global hedge funds. So that initially attracted me to the organization, and the fact that the organization was environmental, and it being a long-short strategy, you would imagine that we know the companies to short, the companies that are bad, and the companies to go long in, the companies to buy that are good. So that was really cool. So that was the initial attraction. And then meeting the people. When I was hired, I was the 13th full-time member of staff. So it was a rather small team, but I loved the opportunity to be able to build something together with the business, and being given that empowerment, stroke autonomy to get on with the job, which was amazing for me as a role. So I guess that's the reason why I joined. And I think for people that are joining today, we're in the next phase of our growth. And depending on the role and your talent, there'll be great opportunities for you as well.
Awesome. Kitty, Harry?
Yeah, I can go next.
Go for it.
So for me, I think firstly, it would definitely be the sustainability piece. And I think I've just been I still remember to date my first couple of weeks at Impax, and just speaking to people across the firm and how passionate they are about what they do, which really makes such a difference. And then secondly, I actually was very interested in joining Impax because of the headcount. I'd previously come from a very large firm with over 1,000 employees, and I just wanted to be a part of a smaller team where I would have more impact and actually see a difference in my work, and the impact that it was having across the firm. So those are my two reasons.
Ace. Harry?
I would say, the impacts were right in my field of interest. So that's a huge help. And hopefully I felt I had a little bit to bring to the team as well, maybe a fractionally different perspective. But as Kitty said, I think the drive around sustainability and also the size of the team was also appealing. Having worked for a bigger organization previously, I feel like you get to know people a bit better when you're a company of Impax's size. So that was an appeal.
Awesome. And I'm going to give my reason that's going to also kind of answer someone's question about how do you know if you're right for a job and if a job is right for you. So I joined Impax 2 months ago following a 7-year career in an energy company. And when I was in that company, I was trying to figure out which bit of HR did I enjoy and what was right for me. And I did that in multiple ways through having different experiences and seeing, did I like this? How was I feeling each day? Where were my strengths? What was the feedback I was getting from people? As well as kind of picking up mentors and people who I found kind of cared about my career journey along the way. You'll find kind people who will normally invest and be very generous with their time because people have been generous to them. And that's what really led me to Impax, in that I'd found my passion was in learning and development and supporting the business. And I was looking for a company that aligned with my values and a culture that I could fit into. And I'm glad 2 months in, it's working out. And I think you've just always got to trust your own gut, but we all make decisions in different ways. So be kind to yourself would be my main overall, because your career is what's it called? It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. I'm going analogy wise like Darren, I like to say Michael Phelps it. So stay in your own lane. I think when I was quite early in career, I felt very competitive with some of my peers, thinking, oh, am I progressing fast enough? Or should I be doing this instead? And I just kept focused on what I wanted to do. And ultimately, I think I'm happier because of it. So yeah, just trust your own instincts would be my advice there. Fab, how are we doing for time? Okay, we've got a couple more minutes, and I think Kitty, if we could just clarify, how can people find out about role opportunities? Because that one's come through quite a few times since we mentioned it a minute ago.
Yeah, absolutely. So all of our roles are posted onto our LinkedIn page. So do follow us on LinkedIn. And then once you hit your notification button, just make sure it's switched on so you actually do get a notification every time we are posting roles. So that's the best way. We are currently very exciting. We're actually working on our careers page. So in a couple of months' time, you'll be able to just directly go onto our website as well.
Awesome, thank you. And let's squeeze another one. I'm going to ask Darren this. What's been your favourite experience during your time at Impax?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. There's been so many, I should say. I think just seeing the growth of the organisation. When I started, the organisation was around 400 million pounds in AUM. Now we're 34 plus, they probably a bit more than that billion pounds, which is amazing and great to see. So I think, you know, just being able to contribute to that growth from where I sit has been amazing, and you know, taking people with me as well has been really great, and seeing people's careers flourish within the organisation that have worked for me or worked elsewhere, that I've helped in whatever way, has been really, really fulfilling for me. So that's all I can answer, really. There's been so many particular moments, but really those kind of two examples stick out for me.
Awesome. Harry, Kitty, any from you in the next couple minutes before I wrap up? I can see thinking faces.
In truth, nothing springs to mind.
I'm trying to think of one. Yeah, I'm trying to think of. There's so many, as Darren said. There's quite a few. I think.
I think it's for me, it's not buying you time, but also something in a short space of 2 months. I think getting to know our team has been really nice, and we surprised our HR director with a birthday meal. And Kitty and I pretended we were doing team building and surprised her with a birthday meal, and it was a really nice chance just to get to know each other personally, and the fact that everyone loved it, and we spent some time together was really cool, and she loved it. So it's important to celebrate the people as well as the work, I think.
Absolutely, great example. Yeah.
Cool. Right. Well, we're coming up to an end now. So thanks so much for spending your kind of evenings with us, or mornings, wherever you are in the world. And we hope you enjoyed getting to know us here at Impax. So if you're interested in applying for the internship, ping your CV in. If there's any other roles that you're really keen on as well, send your CV in, and we'll let you know when we start to launch our website and have a bit more of a career hub available for you. But do check out our LinkedIn in the meantime, see if there's anything there for you. I think some details have been added to the chat about kind of future sessions that are coming up. All these sessions are recorded, so you can watch this back if you'd like to see our answers, or just check out some of those details again, then feel free to do that. I believe there's 9 more firms to go, so the fun will still continue. And tomorrow you've got Man Group, which is a global technology-empowered active manager working on behalf of their clients and the millions of retirees and savers they represent. So they are keen to chat to you tomorrow about that. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you to my fellow speakers. Enjoyed getting to know you all a bit more. And please feel free to connect with us or send in your CVs. We've had fun. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Kitty.
No worries. I was just actually going to say, would you like me to continue answering the open questions just in the chat, just typing them in?
Oh, sure. If you want to do
Yeah.
that, I'll keep it
Okay.
open for a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, no worries.
If
I'm just
anybody's
trying.
still with us, is anybody even still here to see them?
Okay, maybe everyone's joined off.
No,
That's
there's
fine.
still-
If
no, there's
anyone
still-
gets in touch with you guys
there's actually
afterwards, then
there's actually still 10 participants, it looks like. So 9.
okay.
So if anybody, I don't know if they can hear us, but if they can, then go for it and keep putting them in. And
Yeah, no worries. I'll just type then. So let's see. Okay, I think Kirsty already answered
Francisca,
that.
Grace, Johnson, Munia, Olieme, and Snahal. Someone has just reached out. Francesca has said thank you, so if she's still here looking for answers, great.
Brilliant.
I'll just go off video and then let me know when you're done.
Me too. Thanks.
Sure.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much. So I'll just join off then. Thank you very much for your time and appreciate you helping us with the technology and everything.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, you
The
take
work
care.
you're doing. All right.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.